Now we're going to switch gears a little bit and do a roundtable conversation between two people, a very young and dear liver patient, Alyssa McCarty, and Dr. Katz from Chalk. Dr. Katz is Division Chief of Pediatric Gastroenterology, Division of Children's Hospital of Orange County, Director of Chalk Children's Multiplayer Feeding Program, Medical Director of Outpatient Specialty Care Services, Health Science Professor of Pediatrics at UC Irvine. He is regarded as a leader of the multidisciplinary feeding program and is highly respected both nationally and internationally. He has been instrumental in the formation of the new International Association of Pediatric Feeding and Swallowing and serves on the association's board of director. As director of the feeding program, Dr. Katz has developed novel and innovative strategies that are used to help children with feeding problems after major surgery. So Dr. Katz, welcome aboard. We look forward to your conversation.
Thanks, Dr. Saab. First of all, having just had a birthday, I'm Dr. Coley, when you talked about very old studies and knowing that I was in practice then, makes me not feel very young at this moment. But I have the honor and pleasure of introducing to everybody Alyssa McCarty, who will keep me young and keep us all young with her spirit and her smile. We've talked about doing something like this for quite a while. We've all been to medical lectures and doctor's visits, or being the subject of that doctor's visit, talking doctor to patient. But it's time to hear from the children and hear about their experiences. And we're talking about doing this on a serial basis so that we can have the appreciation of what the children feel. And it gives us a better understanding of how to approach kids, how to understand what they're going through, and to allow us to provide a better family-centered, patient-centered care. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Alyssa.
Thank you, Dr. Katz. So hello, I am Alyssa McCarty, and I am 14 years old, and I have autoimmune hepatitis. So my journey started in January of 2019, when I was getting a routine physical done, and I had to get blood work done, and my blood work came back with elevated liver enzymes. And after that, I had to get a lot more blood work before I was finally referred to Dr. Grant in April of 2019. And the thing I found most important about seeing Dr. Grant is that he made my diagnosis process feel less about what I was doing wrong and more about what else could be wrong versus just my choices and what was happening with me. In the first part of my diagnosis process, I felt as though it was being put on me, like, oh, it could be my weight, it could be my diet, and that didn't make me feel good about myself at all. And Dr. Grant made it feel like, well, there are other options, there are other medical options that could be wrong, and that was really important to know. And another thing he did that was really important for me is that he made sure he was speaking to me at my appointments versus speaking to my parents. And that has always helped me, even now. And he's even had my parents stop talking before when they've been talking too much and be like, Alyssa, do you have anything else to say? Do you have any questions? And it helps me to understand my own condition, which is really important as a teenager because I have the ability to understand my own condition. And then, yeah, I just felt like that is one of the most important things a doctor can do is really just empower their patients, found the word. And then eventually he had me get a biopsy in January of 2020. And this was my first procedure that I had since I was a baby. So I was really nervous. And I was really lucky to have amazing nurses and doctors that day. But I did end up having a panic attack at the hospital before my procedure. But again, I was really lucky to have the nurses there to help me, and they made me feel like a hospital princess because I had my hospital gown on and my sticky socks, and I just felt like they made the whole process a lot better. Um, and then on February 14th of 2019 or 2020, sorry, I was diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis, and I didn't really know how to feel. Um, it was such a weird day because it was Valentine's Day, so great Valentine's Day. Um, and I was just super confused, and I wanted to know what it meant for my future and if there's a cure. And I had so many questions, and I know my parents were worried and they wanted to do everything they could to help support me and empower me. And I'm really grateful that both of them were there to help me through that. Um, and sadly, with my condition, there is no cure yet. My whole family is still super hopeful that there will be a cure someday. But after my diagnosis, I started steroids, and after a few months, I gained 15 pounds, and my face became very swollen, and my confidence really took a hit. And it was a really tough time for me because I just didn't feel like myself. I felt awful. I didn't like how I looked. I was worried what other people were thinking about me. And as a teenager, it was, and as anyone at any age, it's not a good experience. Um, and I ended up getting stretch marks because of the weight gain. And I saw that in the beginning, I was like, oh, well, that's not good. Those are bad. That's because I have too much weight. Like it's a problem. But now since I still have them, even though I've lost all the weight since being off the steroids, and now I see them as an accomplishment and as like a trophy. Like I went through this tough time and now I'm here and I'm okay. Um, and I think it's really important to look at stuff like that as a positive thing. So an unfortunate thing about my diagnosis, besides the fact that I had to be diagnosed with autoimmune hepatitis, is that it was right before COVID, which meant when I was on my steroid, I was immunocompromised. And that meant I couldn't see my friends, I couldn't play volleyball, and I couldn't return to school when everyone else could. Lucky for me, I have amazing friends and they were always there to support me. And they always made sure that they would FaceTime me over COVID, and they would always find ways to hang out with me in a safe way. And with volleyball, my coach made it so that I could just practice with just my coach because I wasn't able to return to the team right away. And when I was able to return to the team, my whole team was very good about wearing their masks, which I'm so grateful for. An unfortunate thing is I wasn't able to return to school when everyone else was. I had to wait about another month before I was off my steroid to return to school. Now, however, I only have to get blood tests about once every 3 months, and I luckily don't have to go to the doctor's office nearly as much as I used to. But I wanted to share how my my condition was always explained to me, because I think it's important to really help patients to understand their condition in order to make them feel confident and able to speak about it. So my condition was explained that my liver was like a house, and then my medication was like a wall around that house, and these robbers, which was my immune system, was trying to get into the house. And as long as I was consistent in taking my medication, those walls would stay up, and the robbers couldn't get in. This really helped me to feel confident in understanding and being able to teach others about my condition. And my main message that I want to get through is that other kids who have conditions like mine, whether it's liver disease or autoimmune disease, that they are not alone in what they're going through, and that yes, some of the stuff is scary, but it's going to be okay in the end because the doctors and nurses that are there to help them are incredible. And also that liver disease is not just an adult disease, because when I've told people that I have autoimmune hepatitis, they like question me, well, how did that happen? And with my condition, we don't know how it occurred. And it, I feel like whenever people hear like liver disease, they always think that it's something that someone did, like an adult that had a drinking problem or something like that. But in reality, that's not always how things like this occur. I think it's really important to support kids who have liver disease in explaining it to others and making it a more normal thing. Because even though my disease is somewhat rare, um, it should still be known about, and it I shouldn't have to feel like nobody knows and nobody understands what it is. So I just really want people to not feel alone, and I think that's my main message. And also that my disease makes me really cool, and it's a special part of me that makes me unique, and it makes me who I am. So that's mainly what I want to say. I did have a question for you, Dr. Katz, though. My main thing is that I found it really important that my doctors made me feel empowered, and I wanted to know how you empower your patients.
I'm not sure who's interviewing who here. And before we started this, I had written down some questions, and you just about answered everything. But there are a few things that you said, and I'll get back to your question. But in my advanced stage, thanks to Dr. Coley, in my advanced stage, I got to get the things I want to say out fast before I forget them. You said a few things that are very important. And I think we together need to emphasize that. And the first is that we as healthcare providers, we as parents, we as friends need to talk to you, to the patient, to the child. We cannot talk in vernacular, in science terms, in medical terms, because many people don't understand it. They'll shake their heads, yes. And then you go out and say, what did he say? I have no idea.
Yep.
So clearly you make a very good point to talk to me.
Yep.
And, parents need to know.
Yeah.
But talk to me because you own it. Another thing that you said, that you put it on yourself, or you talked about it with your feelings, but I will bet you dollars to donuts, Mom, who I know is sitting in the room, also felt is it was my fault. And and it is our responsibility to look you flat in the face and say, this is not your fault. As a child, as the patient, what did I do wrong? As a parent, what did I do wrong? It's always a parent's fault. And we need to respect that. So what we do as providers, we need to tell some jokes to lighten things up a little bit. We need to find out who you are, but we have to be honest and straightforward. You're going to need a biopsy. It's going to hurt a little bit. Not just saying, oh, you're going to need a biopsy, it's fine. But being prepared, understanding your disease in the terms that meet your level. I'm not going to, when you are what, 11, 12, I'm not going to talk to you like a 19-year-old. I have to kiss, keep it simple.
Yeah.
So you understand. Because if you understand, now you're kind of a special person, you're very mature, but you need to be brought along so you understand the why. Why are things being done? Why do you have to take medicine every day? Your friends don't. And by empowering you to make, not only to understand the disease, but to help to make decisions, that gives you power over your disease.
Yeah, for sure. I wanted to add on to the part where you're saying talking to the patient. And when you said talking in medical terms, I remembered like when I was younger, I would always hear the doctor talking to my parents. and using medical terms that my parents would understand. And then me asking about it later and trying to figure out, well, what were they talking about? And I've always felt like I was getting like the sugar coated version. Um, and as you said, it's really important to be honest to the patients and just saying it straight up what is happening, um, and not sugarcoating it and not acting like it's no big deal, because stuff like this is a big deal for kids, especially, who don't get procedures every day, and they need to know uh, like what is going to happen, because I was really stressed out with my first procedure, and that's because I didn't exactly know what was going to happen. So it is so important to give patients expectations of what is going to happen, and that everything is okay and it's not their fault, like you were saying.
It is my bias that teenagers, a unique group of people, all teenagers say, I want to be special, I want to be myself, I want to be that. But my belief, my personal belief, is that what teenagers want more than anything else is to be like every other teenager. That's called fashion, that's called groups, that's called friend groups, whatever. But teenagers want to be like teenagers. How did you say your friends, your classmates understand it, but how did you approach them? And how do they approach you? Can you expand on that a little bit?
Um, so with me, I I really only told like my closest friends, because like it my disorder is, or disease, is not visible, which is, I'm really lucky, and it's not something that like I have effects every day, um, because of. So I felt like I only needed to tell my family and my close friends. And for me, I've known my closest friends since kindergarten, so I feel like I can tell them anything. And their reactions were all just, they wanted to make sure I was okay. And now, like, I was telling them about this today, and they're all like, that's super cool that you get to do that. And um, I feel like as a teenager, them saying that's cool, and like it makes me feel like more normal, like it's more just a cool thing versus like, oh, you have to do that. Like it makes it more of a positive thing, in my opinion. And I don't feel different, um, because, as I said, my disease does not affect me daily. Like I don't feel anything because of it, so I don't feel like different in any way. I just feel like I have more to share and more to teach other people about. I believe that answered your question. If it doesn't, just let me know.
Mhm. No, it's good. Hey, let me tell you a story. You have a unique opportunity to understand the true meaning of friendship. And I tell this to a lot of the kids who are of your age or a little older, because you have a disease that will require certain modifications of your lifestyle. I mean, let's face it, teenagers drink alcohol. They do. We as parents don't want it to happen, but when you go to college, you're gonna be exposed to it. And there is peer pressure to drink or whatever. So what I tell kids is that here's your opportunity to really identify, to understand what true friendship is. There are some kids that say, oh, don't worry about it. One drink won't hurt. Come on, whatever. You go, no, I can't. The medicine I'm on, my liver, I can't do it. The true friend says, I get it. Okay. One of my sons had a friend who had a different disease. He had something called Crohn's disease, which is also an autoimmune disease. And he was on a medicine, for the same medicine you're on, actually, at the time. And he knew he couldn't drink. Now, the guys were, after college, they were over 21, so that it was all legal, but they would go to a bar and they would all order a beer and just sit around and talk. No, they weren't getting drunk or anything like that. It was a social gathering. But this guy was, we'd get a club soda or a glass of water, and it was fine. The guys understood it. There was no pressure. There was no making fun of him. The only unfortunate thing is he was the DD. He had to be the designated driver all the time because the other kids were being responsible. They had had a beer or two, and they knew they shouldn't get it out of a car. So you have that ability to identify true friendship. Many of us don't see that. Many of us don't get that ability. As you move forward, how do you picture being 20, being 30? How do you picture it in your mind? Do you know what you want to do when you get older, or too soon to know?
Um, so when I'm like 20s, 30s, I I really want to work with disabilities. That's something that I'm passionate about. And kind of adding on to like things I'm passionate about is I always find it important to know that my disease does not define me, and it is just something else. It is another thing, but it is not one of my main qualities. Um, so something I'm passionate about is I want to work with disabilities when I'm older. Uh, I possibly want to be a language speech pathologist or a special education teacher when I'm older. My mom is a principal for an online academy, so teaching would kind of be following in her footsteps, which would be really cool. Um, but I don't, since my reality is like when you're talking about the drinking, I probably can't drink like at all, really. When I'm older, I don't, as you're saying, like finding the true friends who won't pressure me into doing stuff like that and they'll just say, okay, is really important for me. Um, because I understand that I can't drink and I don't want to because of my condition. Um, and I just find it really important that I have good friends who won't pressure me into that in any age. Yeah.
As you think about the future, well, no, first of all, who is Alyssa McCarty? Is Alyssa McCarty a young woman, a young lady with a disease, or are you a disease trying to be a young lady?
I'm a young lady with a disease.
Do you see it inhibiting your future potential?
Not at all. I, in fact, see it as something that can enhance my future potential, such as doing more things like this and teaching others about it.
A common thank you for that. On behalf of society, thank you. You clearly do it very well. I know you were nervous going into this,
Yeah.
but like we said, just let's talk. And you're doing a wonderful job.
Thank you.
One of the challenges that we as healthcare providers have is dealing with teenagers. Teenagers with chronic illnesses will just take a powder. They won't take their medicine. They won't do the care because, again, they want to be like everybody else. And all their friends are not taking medicine on a day in and day out basis. We struggle with this mightily, whether you're talking about kids like I deal with chronic bowel disease or liver disease, or kids with diabetes. They won't take their insulin. I mean, you see it across the board. It's amazing people get on the other side of the teenagedom and survive because they just so flake out. What would you say to these kids? How would you help me deal with these kids and get through to them that this is important stuff? You don't want to be in a position of the woulda, coulda, shoulda. When you down the line and say, well, I could have done that, I should have done that, and now I'm suffering the consequences. How should I approach you? How should I approach other teenagers?
So, like I was saying earlier, with what my doctors have always told me about the house is a way that I understood the need of my medication. So putting it in terms such as that are more simple could be helpful for teenage patients who don't understand that they need to take their medication. And if I were able to talk to them, I would just say, take your medication, because that's really important. Um, and the doctor, and also I feel like it's so important for teenagers to understand that the doctors are not the bad guys. They're trying to help you in any way they can, and that doctors are amazing people. Uh, and like, just honestly, just putting it in a possibly like a different way, like drawing it out so that they can understand the true importance of taking their meds. Because I have to take medication every night, and it just become part of my like night routine. Like, I can't go to bed without taking my meds now because I just won't be able to fall asleep. Um, so just making it a simpler understanding and putting it in different, like drawing it out and putting it in a different way so that they can understand.
I wish there were more of you. I mean, no, it's sad, parents come in, yeah, I found his medicine under the bed. It is a real thing. And it's, what would you say? What would you say to parents? Now, again, you're an exceptional young lady. There are other exceptional young ladies and boys, um, who do and follow the rules, but what would you say to the parents of these kids who are flipping out? What advice would you have to give them? I know I should be asking your mom this, but this is our conversation. We're in a safe space.
Probably patience is important, and doing your best to empower kids, because like we were talking about earlier, it can make kids feel left out and feel different than other teenagers or kids. And honestly, just having patience with your kids and trying, like I said, to put it in a way that they understand so that it's easier, and that they feel empowered and like they can make this into a good thing. Because honestly, the thing that has helped me the most is making everything, like not pretending it's positive, but like turning it around and making it positive. So like with just my condition in general, I have been able to do stuff like this and speak to doctors such as you, um, and teach other, like all my friends about this and helping them to understand what it is. So just parents can help their kids to um, make it into a good thing. Like my mom, she got this whole thing started for me, so that I could teach others about my condition. So doing stuff like that to make it into a cool thing or a good thing, uh, so that it doesn't feel as weird and like it's not a bad thing or not normal.
Alyssa, you're terrific.
Thank you.
And thank you
Yes.
for your wonderful smile. Thank you for putting up with my silly questions. Thanks for coming tonight. And I will guarantee that people have benefited from your words. And I look forward to more conversations and seeing you around the ranch every once in a while. Say hi.
Thank you
And
so
I
much.
apologize that you actually have to deal with Dr. Grant. He's weird.
Thank you,
Anyway.
Alyssa. Thank you, Dr. Katz. We have
Thank
been looking to do an informative webinar like this for a long time. And our hope is that we continue doing this as we grow into, hopefully, with the COVID and all, into in-person events. We hope that you join us and talk to people live. So it is a wonderful, you are a wonderful role model. Dr. Sami Saab is saying this was a great program and he needs to leave at this point. And I just want to thank all of you, your mom, Dr. Katz, for helping us put this fantastic program together. For our viewers, please visit our website, liverhealthfoundations.org, for our future events. And our Facebook is up and running, our Twitter and also Instagram are up and running. Please visit. We are going to be posting our programs very soon about for 2022. And we hope to see all of you there. Until then, happy holidays, stay safe, and we see you all in 2020. Thank you.